Hey, come see us in Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, Rutherford, New Jersey at the Icarus Festival, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. I saw this tweet from Jackson Hinkle's pal Haas, right, who I've met, and he says, "What if I told you everything that you're taught about this man," meaning the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, is and his country's propaganda? What if I told you that North Korea, the DPRK, is vilified because it is one of the only countries in East Asia which refuses to be enslaved by international banksters? What if I told you that all its troubles were the result of an extremely harsh sanctions imposed by the U.S. regime? What if I told you that people in North Korea are in general happier than people in the South? No homeless, no organized crime, no prostitution or pornography, no unemployment, and an abundant housing for all. Sure, they don't have as much access to consumer goods, but what they have is dignity and freedom. Freedom from being enslaved by foreigners and banksters. Their land, people, and culture is free from the filth and poison of today's Western societies, and they are better off for it. Do you really think the media has been telling you the truth about this country? So I've been lied to so much by the United States and our establishment media that I'm willing to have an open mind about that, right? So I don't know anything about North Korea, but I know somebody who does know something about North Korea. It's Michael Malice, and he's a Ukrainian-American author and host of You're Welcome with Michael Malice podcast. His books include Dear Reader, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong II, and The New Right, a journey to the fringe of American politics. He is also the subject of the graphic novel Ego and Hubris, written by the late Harvey Pekar of American Splendor fame, and he is also the author of The White Pill, The Tale of Good and Evil. And here's the book he wrote about. There it is, Dear Reader, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong-il, not Kim Jong II. What's wrong with me?
That was Kim Jong II.
So let me bring on Michael Malice. Hey, Michael.
Hey, so a lot of what he says is correct in that you shouldn't trust the media's portrayal of North Korea. One of the reasons I wrote this book is when this book came out 10 years ago now, all or most of the media was about making fun of this country. And isn't it hilarious? They're putting on a song and dance. They have to wear their leaders' pins on their lapels when they leave the house. It's just like a giant carnival. But much of the other things he said is not only true, doesn't make sense. For example, if they did all have this abundant housing, why wouldn't they have consumer goods, right? If they're enough that they could put a roof over everybody's head, surely they have enough to feed everybody. So I agree with him that the sanctions are a problem. And whenever, or I don't want to say whenever, but I'm not informed enough, but almost whenever the U.S. imposes sanctions, it's the people who pay the price. Right. It's not the governments. So his point is well taken about the sanctions are not helping the people. But to say that just because something bad is being done to a country, therefore it's exclusively the fault of foreigners is also inaccurate.
But I say that about Putin.
Right. Let me just say let me say one more example. It's like, let's suppose your spouse is cheating on you and then you go in and kill her. It's like, well, you were cheating on me, so that's why I killed you. It's like, well, that gave you a pretext to do some pretty awful things. So North Korea very much uses the things that are being done against them, sometimes unfairly, as a pretext to have their level of tyranny. And this claim that they're happier than South Korea, well, North Korea has an electrified border to keep the people in. And I think when you allow people to choose where they want to live, that's the best way to determine who's happier and who isn't.
Well, that is very intriguing to me, that they have fences. You know, normally you think of putting fences to keep people out, right? But it's true that the North Korea doesn't allow their own people to travel outside their country.
Oh, well, hold on. You are allowed to travel if you're lucky, but some members of your family have to stay behind as hostages. So it's a very small handful of people, and you have to be very high up in the government to be allowed to leave. There used to be a few people who could escape from North Korea to China because the Tumen River is very shallow between North Korea and Manchuria, but they put up a fence and then they electrified the fence. So that's kind of been eliminated completely.
So that's like their secret space program is being allowed to exit North Korea into the greater universe. Yeah, only very high up people even know about what other countries have.
Jimmy, I mean, Kurt, you laugh, but, you know, like once you've been there, it's not as funny to me because every single person who I saw when I was there is still there. and they're not allowed to step foot in other countries. It's a felony, death penalty, often, if you have videos from other countries and information from other countries. That's kind of fallen away as there's this big smuggling operation. South Korean soap operas and the like are very popular now in North Korea, and that's how they're getting some information about the outside world. But their whole claim is because they have this ultra-nationalism, what we create is for us, and what isn't for us doesn't concern us.
Yeah, right. Well, the reason I'm laughing is because we have that North Korea that we keep in our pocket, and the whole goal is to get us like that. The whole goal of a 15-minute city is to keep you in your spot.
Oh yeah,
we're a great enemy to have if you want an excuse to do something. Because North Korea was a great enemy to have to do the crap that America does. Remember, we said we were gonna send Seth Rogen to kill that guy, Kim Jong-un, and then Trump insulted him. I don't know how that's worse than the movie they made about killing him. But and then they were going to get a nuke, and then they did get a nuke, right? And then my memory goes blank. And then when I came to, we were arguing if women had dicks. Like, that's like an old enemy from like they abandoned, it's like Thanos and then this other guy they abandoned. Like, these enemies keep getting recycled. And America, I guess, has been a very reliable enemy that government can have.
But Kurt, the reason the enemy is getting recycled in this case is because our media is so stupid and so intent on keeping everybody stupid that unless there's a narrative that we're the good guys and we're going to save the day and that's the end, they don't know how to tell the story. North Korea has nukes. They are at one point the fourth largest military in the world. I'm not sure if that's the case. They regard themselves as what they call a hedgehog because it's got spines going every direction. So a hedgehog is their metaphor and stand up against much bigger countries and enemies. But we are not getting the government out of there. So the media just stops talking about it. It's just like, well, we don't have an answer for it. We can't make Biden the good guy and Trump the bad guy. So look over here. Let's talk about something else.
So, Michael, how were you able to get in and out of North Korea?
So it was legal until Otto von Bier. There's very little that the government of North Korea has to offer the outside world. So one of the things they want, because they want hard currency, their currency is very low value internationally. So they wanted RMB from China, they wanted American dollars and some other currencies. So you were allowed there under the auspices of the state. After Otto von Bier died, the travel ban was reinstated.
Well, can you tell me? I don't know who Otto von Bier is.
Okay, so Otto von Bier was an American kid who went to visit North Korea. He stayed in the same hotel room that I stayed in. There's a hotel that foreigners stay in. It's called the Alcatraz of Fun. It's nicknamed the Alcatraz of Fun because you stay on a hotel on an island in the middle of Pyongyang, so you can't really leave the island. When he was there, he broke the rules very stupidly and went to another floor within that hotel. They have a secret floor. He stole a poster. They caught him. They held him hostage as they done other people They done with other people in the past. Things went south, and he came home basically in a body bag. And this was a very low moment in North Korean and American relations. And after that, the ban was reinstated. But here's the thing: it's just like if I'm going to go in the White House, I'm not defending them. I'm just explaining this. If I'm going to the White House and I start stealing things, the Secret Service isn't going to pat me on the back and be like, "You're a good U.S. citizen. Carry on." I mean, these people are no joke. And it's very foolish to kind of mess with them. Go ahead, Kurt. Sorry.
I mean, if you just legally have Ashley Biden's diary that you went through a lawyer properly and you weren't going to print it, they'll kick your door down in the middle of the night. Like, it really is a dumb move. But, I mean, doesn't that kind of attract... He's not the guy that was, like, bringing Bibles there, right? Or is that the same guy?
No. That was another guy. There's a big movement from certain people in South Korea to try to help their North Korean brethren, and it's decreasingly successful. It's also very difficult because the few people who made it from North Korea to South Korea, where they're automatically citizens. So if they just step foot in a South Korean embassy anywhere, they're kind of home free. It's almost impossible to integrate them into South Korean society, which is very high status. Because first of all, their accents are very thick, and it's just kind of regarded as hicks. Mm-hmm. These are people who've never seen a computer. These are people whose entire minute of every lives has been dictated for them. So it's very hard going for them once they do manage to escape, if they do.
So really, it's that bad in North Korea. It might sound like a stupid thing to say, but
it's not a stupid thing to say because so much of our media is focused on their military and war propaganda, as opposed to being concerned about the populace. I mean, as night follows day, that's the case with all these other stories.
So, No. You talk about North Korea has mandatory abortions. I've only seen mandatory abortions at the Improv. Am I right? Come on.
No,
anyway.
No, those are miscarriages. What is meant by mandatory? It's not mandatory abortions. What happens is when some North Korean women escaped into China and were often captured and put in sexual slavery, because China has very strict deportation orders to send them, ship them back to North Korea, and they're completely powerless and they don't often speak Chinese. If they get knocked up by a Chinese person, North Korea is dedicated to racial purity. Their argument is Koreans are the only pure race on earth. All other races have been intermingled through invasion or intermarriage. And as the great leader Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea, said, not one drop of ink shall be spilled in the Han River, which is a river in Korea. So they're very intent on maintaining their Koreanness. So if a woman is impregnated by a Chinese man and is repatriated to North Korea, she's forcefully beaten until she loses that child, because they're not going to have mixed race kids on their soil.
So you're saying they're not happier than South Koreans?
But there is something that there's also a ring of truth to that, because they are very big on community. They really do have this sense of looking out for one each other, the village and that kind of sense. Whereas South Korea is, at one point, maybe still is, the suicide capital of the world per capita. It's the plastic surgery capital of the world per capita. So North Korea talks about this constantly. So I'm not going to get into this point of North Korea's hell, South Korea's heaven. I'm saying
one has lights.
Yeah, one has lights. But what I'm saying is, I feel like this is a bit of misdirection to say that South Korea is an angelic, amazing country and nothing's wrong there. I'm worried about the people in North Korea who don't have food and who live under the threat of tyranny every day.
And so they don't have food mostly because of sanctions?
Not most, because they have no industry. Because North Korea is a very mountainous region. It's hard for them to produce crops. To produce crops, you need fertilizer. To produce fertilizer, you need oil to run the factories. If they're not having enough oil, they're not going to have enough anything else. So they also have something called Sangbun, which is during the 50s and 60s, there were several versions of this project. They had something called the Understanding People Project. Like all these Orwellian things, they sound great, right? I want to understand people. Jimmy, you want to understand people. So does Kurt. They interviewed every single person in the country, and they figured out what you were doing before the Korean War, or as they call it, the Fatherland Liberation War. The war before the Korean War. If you were divided into 3 castes with, I think, 60 subcastes: favorable, hostile, or wavering. This determines everything about where your life is in North Korea, including where you live. You're not allowed to step foot in Pyongyang, the capital city, unless you have a high sangbun, meaning your family was high status, like they fought with the great Kim Il-sung. If your grandfather was a landowner or a priest or capitalist, forget it. That also determines the allocation of food. So during the 90s, when the famine hit, the people in Pyongyang were the first to get food. That's where the leader lives and everybody, all the important people. Whereas the people in Northeast, which are the lowest sangbun, they're the ones who are the first to starve.
Mike, wait, so
wow.
is that, this is like, back in the day, when I would go on BuzzFeed, I'd fill out a questionnaire about which Sex and the City woman am I, and I would be a Samantha, because I'm starting to suspect they don't care that I was a Samantha, and they were trying to get my data to do that. That's why I don't want to sound paranoid, but I suspect we're going to have a North Korea thing with all this data scrap. That sounds like they analog data scraped, like they did a Facebook by hand to find out who goes where, which is what we're going to have here.
I think that was just a low-key rant for you to say that you're trying to make people think you get laid a lot, because you're not Samantha. Like, let's be honest, you're Charlotte.
I know, I lied on the test because I want to be a Samantha, and that's why it hurts more.
So, Michael, not to shift the subject too much, but libertarian icon Ayn Rand promoted the right to self-interest. But was her haircut really in her own self-interest?
Well, hold on. That's a great question. I'm going to say one thing. Ayn Rand hated libertarians. She denounced them every chance she got.
Really?
And yes, she despised them. She thought they stole her ideas and did not ground them in something, so therefore they're doomed to fail. Look it up. She talks about it all the time. I don't know how you steal ideas, but here we are. That haircut, I thought it worked for her.
Follow-up question, what about Rand Paul's?
What about Mike Johnson? Mike Johnson, a guy settled on a haircut when he was 5.
Wait, in all seriousness, doesn't Rand Paul look like he's wearing a rug?
Yes.
He does, but I don't think he is.
Yeah, but that's like kind of the worst of all worlds, right?
Yeah,
want
it's the worst of all worlds.
It's like Ryan Grimm, right? He looks like he's wearing a toupee, but it's actually because he cuts his own hair.
Now they call the Kim Jong Un. I remember at one point it was called the success cut or something along those lines.
Oh.
Well, the reason Kim Jong Un has that haircut is because it's exactly the haircut that his grandfather, the great leader Kim Il Sung, has.
And Andrew Schultz has for some reason.
Yeah, he's trying to harken back to an era where North Koreans were actually outcompeting South Korea.
He's trying to harken back what?
To an era when North Korea was outcompeting South Korea and kind of the so-called golden days.
Oh.
Look, Reagan's hair got us through a lot of tough times. You can't deny.
You can't deny that. And look at what Jackson Hinkle's hair has done for the Russians.
It's unbelievable. I think they made him in a lab.
I think so. Not to change the subject, but boy, Jackson, you look like you really have been working out. You look gorgeous.
Oh my God, Piers Morgan sliding off his chair talking to Jackson Hinkle. Why are you saying that, Jackson? Why do you say that?
Oh, Jackson. So in the Anarchist Handbook, you quote anarcho-communist Mikhail Bakunin, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right,
correct,
as saying nothing is more dangerous for man's private morality than the habit of command. Am I doomed, Michael? Aren't corporations actually dictatorships, right? Since they parallel the hierarchy of governments, aren't wealthy capitalists and corporations just rulers by a different name? I mean, why condemn Lockheed Martin but defend ConAgra? Why is Elbit bad but Monsanto good? Can I still drink Coors Light? By the way, Coors Light, the official beer of anarchy.
I don't. I think Coors Light's the official. I don't know what Coors Light's the official beer of bad taste.
The gender anarchy, I think they mean.
What Bakunin is referring to, and I agree with him, is corporations are infinitely more dangerous when they're hand in hand with the government.
Yes,
and that's what we're seeing in America today. So if you just have some company making awful cars, and you have even a semi-free press, and everyone could be like, you get in this car, it's a death trap. That's one thing. If you have that organization with lobbyists and they're saying you have to buy this car or else we're going to either give you a huge fine or put you in jail, that's when things get really problematic. So the difference between a corporation and the government is you do, in most cases, have the option of exit, whereas the government, you don't have the opportunity to escape its clutches.
So would you agree, though? I mean, we had Professor Wolf on, and he makes the point, too, that, you know, people who hate communism because of its authoritarianism, and but they embrace capitalism, which inside every big corporation is run just like a mini dictatorship, is it not?
Well, yes, but at the same time, they don't have the guns. So I'm not a fan of corporate America. Well, if you look at what happened with Obamacare, if you look at what happened with the vaccines, this was corporate America in the former case, forcing literally everyone in this country to be their customer via the state. And the propaganda that went on through 2020 and 2021, where these organizations are somehow miraculous and you can't even sue them.
That's a cartel,
if they cause you
a full
any harm.
cartel operation.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
So capitalism in that sense, which I'm not for, is this unholy union between corporate America and the state at the expense of both smaller independent businesses and the average citizen.
You know what Rockefeller said? Competition is a sin.
Did he say that?
Yeah. That's why they want to make sure they buy up everything and have these cartel monopoly. Well, not monopolies, cartel, so that no one else can compete and they run everything. So you have the contest, somebody wins, and they go, how do we make it so no one else can ever win ever again?
And then you have the media going on the air telling you that they're the good guys, and it's a good thing that they won.
And people tell me when they say, Jimmy, how could you, when they see how the COVID and the vaccine mandates and all that were carried out, they go, that's your Medicare for all. I'm like, no, that's happening now. And we don't have Medicare for all. That's happening right now.
Right.
That already happened without you guys having a safety net of not going bankrupt.
Someone
when
said
you get
that to you?
They say it all the time. They say it in comments on Twitter. They say it in comments on the videos. They say it in comments on Facebook. They say it all over the place.
It sounds like some kind of neuro-linguistic programming.
This is your Medicare for all. No, this is not. That's what's happening now.
That's a phrase some jerk off put out and then everybody spews it like Putin prop. Take your pick of these stuff. But
wait,
Mike,
but Jimmy, doesn't it make you laugh sometimes when you have to take a step back and try to reverse engineer the point that they're trying to make?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me laugh and cry.
Yeah.
it really does. It's like, oh, I got to explain this again. And I'm all for, again, just to get back to I'm not for anybody having control over my medical decisions. And when people think that if we had Medicare for all of a sudden the government would run my primary care physician's office or the hospital I go to, that's not what would happen. Those places would still be run by private people and corporations. Right now, they're starting to be run by private equity firms, which is horrible for everybody, which is why when I went to get my skin cancer taken off my face, I couldn't even see a doctor. I had to see a nurse practitioner twice. I went back twice. Saw two nurses. I'm like, are you out? And I find out that place is run by Wall Street. And so that's that's the worst. That's the worst thing you can have.
But I think what they're speaking about, and I'm sure you agree with, is even though these organizations are ostensibly private, it's really quick to see how badly they bend the knee at the drop of a hat at the hands of the Biden administration and Big Pharma.
Well, no, I'm saying that the Biden administration bends the knee to these corporations. They bent the knee.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too.
That yes. they bend the, so if you think that was the Biden administration running the COVID policy, they were doing it at the behest of Big Pharma.
Yes, I agree with you completely, yes.
Who's the guy they got chopped? Look, when they got Chapo, that's just one tiny stupid piece of the cartel.
Right.
This is the whole complex is all set up with, we're not going to compete, and it's bad enough it's like we all are, or I don't know, oil barons and say that, but this is across every different kind of industry. So now you're like, now I can transport my stuff because you're going to do what I say. Now I can do this. And then, of course, we have the Fed, the private company, the private bank that prints and also we borrow from them, right?
Yes.
The thing that we borrow. They don't know how it works.
Nobody knows how it works. Nobody. Go ahead.
The Fed is a tax on poverty. The poor people are the first one who are effed over by the Fed, because when you have inflation, if you and I or Kurt maybe lose 10% of our money, it sucks. If I'm having to put food on the table, I lose 10% of my money. These are radical decisions I'm going to have to make with my life. So it's the poorest people who are the most affected by inflation, and there's zero concern for them in the halls of Washington, at least on this issue.
Hey, in today's economic climate, many of us find ourselves facing the challenge of managing our monthly expenses. And high credit card interest rates can trap you in a cycle of debt, with balances that persist month after month. Hey, paying only the minimum each month means it could take years to become. I used to do that. I did that for 10 years. I paid when I first moved to California. I paid minimum payment on my credit cards. If you reach out to American Financing, a trusted partner in helping people achieve financial freedom, if you're a homeowner, they can tap into your home equity and help you eliminate high interest card debt. On average, their customers save $854 per month, equivalent to receiving a $10,000 annual raise. Wow, look at that. It's a good way to look at it. The process is straightforward and quick. You can close your loan in as little as 10 days, and by acting today, you might not have to pay your next mortgage payment. It costs nothing to see how much you can save. This opportunity to regain control of your finances is too significant to ignore. Call 888-804-0303. That's 888-804-0303. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Jimmy. Here we're doing stand-up in Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, Rutherford, New Jersey, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Ontario, California, Irvine, California, Las Vegas, Davenport, Iowa, Chicago, Grand Rapids. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and make sure you go to jimmydore.com and don't go to a second reseller. Not good.